Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Trainz Simulator. Trainz. It's been a hot minute since I did a Trainz video. There really hasn't been much content to catch my eye as of late to warrant a video. I guess I could be going over some older content, but there just hasn't been a whole lot of motivation to do much with Trainz lately. Especially with school, now that I've started a trade school as a gunsmithing school. So I've been pretty beat by the time I get home. It's very hands-on. Everything is hands-on. So been doing a lot of learning a lot about refinishing and finish jobs, bluing, paint, parkerizing. There's a lot of work involved. Gain a whole new respect for gunsmiths, but it's worn me out a lot, so I haven't been able to do videos near as often as I'd like to. But such is life, as some would say. Gotta do what I can to pay the bills, eh? But yeah. So somebody pointed this out not too terribly long ago, and I had to go take a peek at it because well, it's a Texas and Pacific locomotive, as you can see. It is a Texas and Pacific 060. This is not their own design, the B-8 series. These are URSA 060s, as is pretty painfully obvious. But it's still a T&P locomotive, so I think it's worth my taking a peek at, because anybody that's been watching me for a minute know that the T&P is my bread and butter. It's what I model in real life. It's what I do most of my reading on when it comes to railroads anymore. But and it's what I like to see in train simulators whenever I get the opportunity. Unfortunately, there's very, very, very little out there in terms of the Texas and Pacific across any of the train simulators. Unfortunately, it is kind of a I don't want to say forgotten, but it's definitely an unpopular railroad. It's not, you know, UP with the big UP restored steam and whatnot, but this was a very prominent railroad in the South, across Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, going all the way over to California. But the T&P had their own 060s, their own design, which I actually have a model of. It was made by Hallmark. Slightly different design from these, but the USRA ended up pushing out these 060s, and the T&P purchased a handful of them. I believe around 14 copies. So unfortunately, none survive today. Only 3 known USRA 060s are known to survive. I don't believe any of them are operational right now. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but to my knowledge, none of them are operational, which is kind of wacky because there were quite a few of these made for only 6 of them to survive. But not to mention with the crazy popularity of these as a design in model railroading. USRA designs in model railroading, just as a general rule of thumb, are extraordinarily popular with all of the big brand names because they can produce one model and just slap 20 different paint jobs on it and charge an arm and a leg for it. But as far as train simulators go, it's almost the opposite. Outside of the known, like the big known railroads, the smaller stuff like the T&P, these locomotives tend to get overlooked, even when they're a basic USRA model. The T&P ended up with these. I believe these typically operated around Dallas-Fort Worth area. Some might have ended up down around like Houston, Austin, but I believe that was their pretty typical stomping grounds. The T&P had some things changed up on a good many of the locomotives. Most of them were oil-burning locomotives It was a typical trademark for TMP, oil burning, tenders and bunkers done up for them. Of course, the TMP's green. It's not really a Russian iron per se. It's their own concoction, and technically speaking, no two green boiler jackets were alike. Especially after Texas Sun had its way. You see a lot of the 210-4s in the really bright white, barely green. That color is actually typically from sun bleaching. More often than not, it would have started off this really deep, dark green. But other than that, it is pretty much a USRA locomotive. There's nothing wildly special about it. Outside of, like I said, the old bunker, of course the TMP lettering, but other than that, it's pretty standard. Now this is an updated model. It's not a new model per se. It's an updated model. To my knowledge, I don't believe it's brand new. It may be. Maybe I'm crazy, but I believe this is from one of the users, or one of the creators, that has been around for a really long time. I forget the guy's name, but he's done an 080 that has been reskinned 1,000 different times in Trainz Simulator, but he very recently pushed out an updated 060, which is this right here. There's an unlettered version. I imagine there's a few other paint schemes floating around, but obviously the TMP is what had my interest, and I saw no reason to dive into the other ones. And it's not half bad looking. I definitely wouldn't say it's up to snuff with stuff like Trainz Forge or K&L's new stuff. The rivets just don't. These rivets don't do it for me. To me, they look huge. They look really big, and they're 2D, which I don't. Nah. The rivets are a big killer for me. They don't look good. Like, no disrespect for the guy that did them. They don't look great. And it's my opinion. Everybody's got an opinion. It's like assholes. No matter what you do, you're stuck with one. But yeah, it's painfully obvious that they're 2D rivets, and they're way too big. But other than that, it does look really nice. It is a little bit older modeling, squared off edges instead of rounded. Which is kind of wacky because the wheels don't look near as squared off as the boiler does. But such is life. Yeah, those look awful. Those big rivets, they don't do it for me. Let's see. Let's get it so I can go into free roam, because the coloring looks really, really nice. The texturing overall looks really good, but you can't read the number plates. The barrel bands on the boiler, those are 2D. Just, I won't dock it. It is a free locomotive. You do not have to pay for it. It is on the Trainz download station, so you can just look it up. But the numbers, I don't know why. The top of the 7 looks awesome, and then the rest of them look blurry. And the bottom of the 7 and this portion of the 4, it's like weird portions of the numbers look good and other portions don't. The B-8 lettering, extremely low res. The TMP lettering, not horrible, not great, really blurry. Number on the rear of the tender, kind of the same as the cab. Wacky spots, but otherwise very legible as opposed to this. I believe that it looks like water oil capacities, but they're like they're really low res. They're barely legible. That tail light looks awesome. Credit where it's due. That tail light looks really good. I like whatever that texture is. It looks really nice. And the numbers on the light are very legible. And it actually has a nice detail that is all too often overlooked. It's got the electrical lines running from the light down the tender up to the locomotive. See, right to there. Which is just really cool. It's a wacky little detail that just all too often gets overlooked. But you know, overall it doesn't look half bad. There are push poles up under here. The chains, they're flat. Not my favorite. And of course what everybody's waiting on, sounds. It's not bad. You can definitely hear the little pop where the loops change, but other than that, it's not a bad whistle. I believe it's a Powell 3-chime audio sound. I cannot confirm whether or not these locomotives carried Powell 3-chimes, but just, you know, as a separate note, it is a nice sounding whistle. It is a nice sounding audiophile. And it is a 3-chime model. 1, 2, 3. No cord running from the whistle to the cab. But it sounds really nice. And then our bell. So the bell is animated and the bell audio is way out of whack. There's a steam operated bell. The bell sound itself is not bad per se, but it definitely goes to an older locomotive like the 440s. So yeah, there's that. And of course we want to run it. Be sure our tracks are set so we don't run into nothing. My least favorite audio ever in Trainz, those awful crows. So we want to go ahead and pull this back up so that we can turn on our headlights. Turning on your headlights turns on the little generator back here, which isn't half bad. I don't like the steam effects. The little cotton balls are painfully obvious. The exhaust looks pretty decent. Again, cotton balls down here. Up here it looks pretty nice. Ew. I don't like the headlights. Ah, the headlight itself looks good. The tender light, not so much. The chuff sounds are not half bad. They're nothing special. Again, something that we've heard plenty of times. Is it a huge issue? Not really. It's Trainz. It's ridiculously easy to swap sounds around if you want to, but It is a really nice sounding whistle for what it is. As far as detail goes, that's all we get. We get headlights. So it's not an amazingly complex locomotive. It's pretty simple, but again, it is freeware, so I'm not gonna hate on it too much. It's freeware. You can't really go wrong with freeware, especially when I'm finally getting, you know, some T&P stuff that I never get to see ever because it somehow manages to miss the limelight every single time. As far as motion goes, all the rods and the wheels and such all seem to move very nicely, nice and fluid. But really and truly, that's about it. There's nothing else too wild to say. Oh, I like the rod clanking. That sounds very nice. But yeah, other than that, there's nothing too wild, true, or freaky. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it a wrap. Do go check it out. Again, it is available on the Trainz download station. Just look it up. T&P USRA 060, something along those lines. But it's definitely worth taking a look at, especially if you're a T&P guy or a Texas guy or just a fan of oddball railroads. It's worth checking out. It's very nice, very fun. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video, seeing something different, and I will see you guys next time.